welcome back to Ask the Expert. I'm your host, Hannah Place, and today we are here with Logan from Sage Senior Support. And so if you're somebody who has a loved one who's transitioning out of their home into long-term care, this is the interview that you need to see today. Logan, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I know that you actually have a personal story with having a loved one who needed a transition. Can you tell us more about that?
Sure, absolutely. So 8 years ago, my wife's grandmother and grandfather were perfectly fine until they weren't. And so grandfather ended up with early onset dementia, which accelerated pretty quickly, and grandmother with cancer, and then just simply aging. So trying to be at home with my in-laws wasn't no longer an option for them. And you know, for my in-laws, trying to both live their lives, jobs, but also take care of their adult children or adult parents. It's challenging. And so at that time, they were looking for other options, not really sure where to go. And so one of those pieces to the equation was, hey, we need money. So we ended up, my wife and I bought their home. We moved in with the kids, and you know, they had the money to go off and pay for care and find the best options for Mima and Papa. So.
That's amazing. It sounds like you have a big heart for the families who are in those difficult situations. What are the challenges that they're facing? What are the emotions? What are they wrestling through, and how do you help address those things?
Yeah, and that's the emotional part. I answer usually in two parts. It's the emotional side, but also the tangible items and all those things. So the emotional side is really, it's kind of two pieces. If it's a daughter helping their aging mother or father, there's guilt involved. That's probably the heaviest part that I see is just they feel the guilt of forcing a move out of the home. Typically the senior is, they're not raising their hand, dying to get into one of these senior living communities. And so, regardless of the level of care that they need, it's just probably best. And so having those conversations early on is what I found to be the most appropriate in setting them up for success. The second half is the tangible side of, Mom, where are we going with her? Where are we going with Dad? How are we going to pay for this? The minute some of these folks get in there and see the pricing that it comes along with that, they're a little sticker shocked. In the Dallas-Fort Worth area, you can range from $3,000 to $10,000, and then go up from there depending on what type of luxury you want out of the setting. But then what are we doing with Mom's house? It's not ready for the market. We've got a lot of stuff to do. Mom's got a lot of stuff. Not necessarily stuff everywhere, but you've been in that home for 30, 40 years, and so it's their home. So those are typically the two concerns that a family has is where are we going? What are we doing? And this doesn't feel right because you are forcing in some way a move. So. And
if the loved one does have a home that they own, what do you recommend they do with the home?
So 90% of visits that we meet with families, they're not using my services. And I'll touch on what my services are here in a second. So I'm knowing that I'm going in there with some options. And really that comes from, again, an outdated home that I call them time capsules. They're kind of stuck in the 70s or 80s. They've got the yellow shag carpet, the wood paneling on the walls. And so working with them to understand what their specific market looks like, what their home is worth being renovated, showing them their competition, walking them through what is called a comps or a neighborhood analysis, as I like to refer to it, and establishing that value for what the home can be worth after a renovation. Walking them through the renovation scope, item by item, penny down to the penny, and illustrating, hey, this is what I think we could go get. We'll manage the renovation for you as a general contractor, and the situation is typically best for folks that have time and resources. The second option, as I've learned through serving in this capacity, has been, hey, we don't have the money for that. We don't have the time. We just need to get the home sold. And so generally there's a few things we need to take care of. Maybe it's, a leaky roof or an HVAC that's not working. So getting some necessities fixed up and then putting it on the market in as-is condition and trying to maximize both their time but also the money that they can get for the home. Option 3 is where we come in, where I can buy the home directly from the family. Again, my process hasn't changed. I've still shown them what the home could be worth. I show them the renovation scope of work, and I'm very transparent with our fee. Essentially 15% of what we try to sell it for. That's always a sticking point. Like, oh man, 400,000, you got 50,000 right off the top. And I said, well, that's the gross income. I said, think of it as it's gross. It's not fun to look at, but here's what we do with that 50,000 that we're trying to go make, which is not a guarantee. And I've got to pay agents to get the home on the market. I've got to pay a buyer's agent to get the home sold. I've got closing costs. I've got just business expenses for me able to be here with you. I've got printed materials. So there's more to it, and I just try to be as transparent with them as possible, walking them through, what they can net with me, and then what they could potentially net with the other two options. So it just comes down to honesty and transparency. I think the biggest part of, is a stigma that has to do with my role. And I'm real estate, I'm an investor, I'm going to take advantage of the situation and lowball you. And it's just not what I have come out there for. There are options, and I want to help illustrate what those paths look like in a very detailed way. That way, when I'm gone, you can make the decision for what is best for you.
That's great. And it's clear that you do have different options, and you present them for what the situation is, right?
Yeah.
Like maybe somebody needs option A, somebody else needs option C, and you're going to hold their hand the whole time.
Exactly.
So
yeah.
what's a fun success story? I would love to hear one of your favorite stories.
Yeah, so there's a couple of stories that come to mind right off the bat. We were just out of the blue. We network with a lot of different senior living communities because they are kind of the front line for when a family comes and visits to take a tour and experience what it is that this community has to offer. And so sometimes, in their discovery with a potential resident, they're going through and asking questions. And, they had moved mom and dad in, actually, about 6 months prior. Mom was doing fine. Dad had unfortunately passed away. The family actually lived in St. Louis. And so every time they came in town, which is 2 to 3 times a month, they were there checking on mom, but also checking on the house. And so it was a vacant home in a nice neighborhood in Plano. But like I said, that house was yellow shag carpet. That's where I reference that a lot. And they were just looking to be done. Emotionally, they had collected the belongings. They'd distributed out everything that their brother and the sister wanted. And it just came time to relieve that burden of, we're going to see mom, but we got to check on the house first. So that's where we stepped in. We were called out from the community. Family reached out to us, walked them through our process, and they were on the fence of what direction to go. But at the end of the day, it just came down to, we're done. And so they kind of coined the term, I want your do nothing option. So I use that a lot. Her name was Connie. And so I call it the Connie do nothing option. And that's where we bought the home. Actually, it took about 5 months. They still had some other things that they wanted to take care of on the estate planning side. And so we signed the purchase agreement in February-ish and didn't close until May. One of my sticking points for most families is talking about it's your time, it's your transition, and so we're here to serve you, whether it's today or 6 months from now. And then another common situation that comes up, this was a family that was very tough circumstances. Grandmother lived here in Irving. The daughter had actually passed, so the granddaughter was having to step in from Houston. Financially, didn't have the resources to get grandmother into a community just because of distance from where they were. They were thinking about maybe moving her down to Houston, but they've got young kids. I mean, they were in their early 20s, and we can't. It's difficult. So worked with a Medicaid planning attorney, which a lot of folks don't know about the resources there. So I try to connect with them as often as I can for given the situation. But they were connected with a Medicaid planning attorney. That attorney was able to take the net proceeds from the sale, protect it 100%. It went to them for a college fund for their great-grandkids. And then their grandmother got moved into a community and moved on. So I still get photos from them every once in a while. That's the difference with me, is there's a relationship beyond the sale of a home. Yes, that's what I do, but it's how we do it, which is completely different than what most are expecting.
And that's actually what I was going to just ask you as we finish up our time together. Is it sounds like you have such a heart to help those who are going through this transition. What do you feel like it is that just really sets you apart from other people in the industry?
I like to think outside the box, and so thinking outside the box really came from just years of sitting with these families. And in the very beginning, I was called out to look at a home, and that's what I did, and I kind of stayed in my lane. But I could see exhaustion. I could see the emotional toll that whatever decision they had behind the scenes was taking place. I didn't really ask a whole lot of questions until now. And so over the last year and a half, it's really about building a resource network within my Dallas-Fort Worth network of trusted individuals that, if they're looking to age in place, we've got connections with in-home health. If the situation starts to deteriorate, there's hospice companies that I network with. Placement agents, which a lot of folks don't know about what a placement agent does. Essentially an apartment finder for seniors. They are a free resource to the family. There's no paid commission to that person for finding their next home for an aging parent. And then Medicaid planning and estate planning, wills and trusts, and end-of-life planning as well. So putting together a holistic approach while offering real estate services is what I think helps set us apart from the competition.
That's incredible. Well, thank you so much for being here and for your time today. And if you are watching this and you have a loved one who needs to make a transition into a long-term care facility, or you just need some resources on this journey, make sure to get in touch with Logan and his team. And we will see you next time on Ask the Expert.